Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Okay, guys. The Decembrists revolt against the Tsar, preemptive-like. The prior episode was super good. Epic History TV, phenomenal channel. And there was a nice cliffhanger at the end. And I'm excited. Let's go. If you are not ready to learn, there's the door. Omeka's down the hall. You're in the wrong class. Hope you're all doing well, by the way.
December 1825. The unexpected death of Emperor Alexander has thrown Russia into confusion.
Oh, right. So, okay, I remember now. They were planning a coup and planning on assassinating the Tsar, right? And then they would, like, the guys in St. Petersburg would then start their whole thing. But then at first I was like, wait, isn't that a good thing? Because he died without them assassinating him. And so that actually threw a giant wrench into everything, because it wouldn't be clear to the entire country that this revolt is serious, whereas obviously it would be seen as serious if he was assassinated. Does that make sense? Okay.
The line of succession had been secretly changed from his brother Constantine to a younger brother, Nicholas. As he struggles to assert his claim to the throne, a secret society of army officers prepares to make its move. Most are veterans of the wars against Napoleon. Now they want a political revolution in Russia, an end to autocratic government, and the abolition of serfdom. The fate of their revolution will be decided in a single day of chaos and violence on the streets of St. Petersburg. They will be known by the month of their uprising, the Decembrists.
I spilt my drink.
This video is sponsored by MyHeritage, the world's leading service for family history research and
Guys, make sure to use any links he has down here for that.
DNA testing. Anyone with an interest in the past will certainly be interested in their own roots and their family's place in history. MyHeritage now offers the perfect platform to research, organize, and share that information. Start by filling in a few basic details about yourself and what you know about parents and grandparents. From these small beginnings, you can start to build your own family tree with a simple and easy-to-use interface. But you don't have to do it all on your own. MyHeritage has amazing resources to help you delve further into your family's past, with access to 16 billion.
Whenever I talk about this stuff, now I'm Irish and English and French, you guys are like, forget it.
Historical records.
You guys are
And its
stupid.
unique system of smart matches and instant discoveries will make automatic connections to historical data and other branches of your family tree that you may not know existed. As you can see, we've been investigating and organizing our own family history, going back to pre-war Stratford-upon-Avon. We can take photos from the family album and add them to some of these names, bringing us to one of MyHeritage's most exciting and talked about features: its powerful tools to enhance, colorize, and even animate old family photos. With MyHeritage, it's easy to share
Uncanny Valley.
your family tree with relatives and invite them to collaborate in this exciting process of research and discovery. Why not take this chance to become your family's historian with a free 14-day...
Are we, like, in the near future gonna have robots who can be, like, configured to be past relatives, and they're gonna, like, help us with chores or something? Stuff's getting weird.
A trial via the link in our video description. And if you decide to continue your subscription, you'll get a 50% discount. Thank you to MyHeritage for sponsoring this video. 14th December 1825, St. Petersburg. The Decembrists' Northern Society has its headquarters at the offices of the Russian-American Company, where one of its key members, Rylev, is a major shareholder. Decembrist leaders have been working feverishly day and night to
Is that like Alaskan territory?
put everything in place.
Is that like Russian involvement in the Americas, or is that like a Russian-U.S.?
Decembrist leaders have been working feverishly day and night to put everything in place for a coup. Ryleyev is the chief organizer, despite being unwell. Before dawn, they learn that the new emperor has ordered all troops and officials in the capital to swear an oath of loyalty to him that morning. They must act immediately. Once the troops swear the oath, it will be too late.
Why exactly? That might be a dumb question, but yeah, I know I'm ignorant of something, and there is some convoluted reason. It's that obviously that must have meant a lot to the soldiers. Like if you declare allegiance, like I'm thinking like, so what? You can change your mind, but forget it. Never mind.
Immediately. Once the troops swear the oath, it will be too late. Most Decembrists are officers in the Life Guards regiments stationed in St. Petersburg. They plan to tell their men that Nicholas, known and disliked by the troops, is usurping the throne from his brother Constantine, to whom the soldiers swore an oath of loyalty just 17 days ago. There is no plan to involve the Russian people in their revolt. These young aristocrats...
I probably looked at a psycho smirking at the head, but I was at the banner.
The soldiers swore an oath of loyalty just 17 days ago. There is no plan to involve the Russian people in their revolt. These young aristocrats fear that this would only lead to the bloody chaos of the French Revolution. Instead, they will rely on their social connections and the unquestioning trust of the men under their command. They will then use these troops to seize control of the capital, the emperor, and the government. They will form 3 groups. The first will be led by Captain Alexander Yakubovich, a distinguished veteran of the Caucasus War with a reputation for courage. His men will seize the Winter Palace and secure Emperor Nicholas and his family. Some Decembrists want to keep the emperor prisoner, but Ryleyev secretly entrusts his assassination to 28-year-old Pyotr Kakhovsky, an officer recently retired due to ill health. As a cadet officer in the Life Guards Jaeger regiment, Kakhovsky had been demoted for rudeness, debt, and laziness. He is a loner without friends or money, but dedicated to the cause of liberty.
So when they said, ill health, you hear this all the time. So prior to a lot of diagnoses, it seems like a lot of what we can only tell is that they were sick, and then we can speculate about what they might have had. But I always hear like ill health. Like, did he have
liberty, and imagines himself a slayer of tyrants. A second detachment will be commanded by 32-year-old Colonel Alexander Bulatov, a hero of the Napoleonic Wars and Ryleyev's childhood friend. He's recruited just a few days before the revolt, as the Decembrists seek to involve more senior officers. His unit will seize the Peter and Paul fortress, which contains the city's arsenal and dominates the city center. Colonel Prince Sergei Trubetskoy has been appointed dictator or leader of the coup. He is another officer of proven courage from a distinguished family. He will command the main force, expected to number nearly 10,000 men, which will assemble in Senate Square. Trubetskoy will then enter the...
Guys, I know I'm being a bit... I just need to ask the question. Was there ever another attempt at something like this in between this time and the Russian Revolution? That... I'm sorry, it's not important. It was just on my mind.
Which will assemble in Senate Square. Trubetskoy will then enter the Russian Senate and demand that it issues the Decembrists' manifesto to the Russian people. The document announces the establishment of a new provisional government until elections can be held, the freedom of the press and of worship, equality before the law, the introduction of jury trials, and the abolition of serfdom and military settlements. Two well-known and respected politicians, Nikolai Mordvinov and Mikhail Speransky would lead the new government to provide continuity and reassurance.
If I am to be emperor for only 1 hour, I shall show myself worthy of being so. Emperor Nicholas, 14th of December, 1825. Do you guys think that if this that if this one succeeded, that it would have turned out better for Russia than the one that succeeded in 1917, 1918? I wonder. I gotta pee quick, guys. Be right back. Alright, sorry, I washed my hands.
Decembrists, drawing on their military experience, have come up with a realistic plan to seize control of the Russian capital. But almost immediately, the conspiracy begins to unravel. On a bitterly cold morning, Kakhovsky and Yakubovich come to Rylev's apartments, where the Decembrists have been meeting. Kakhovsky has lost his nerve and is no longer willing to kill the emperor. At the last minute, Yakubovich has also decided he cannot shed the blood of Russian soldiers and refuses to lead troops against the Winter Palace.
It's a bit late for all this, isn't it? I mean, you should have... It's a bit late.
Bulatov, who is supposed to lead his troops against the Peter and Paul fortress, does not even show up.
Yikes.
The Decembrists are in a race against time. There are several Guards regiments in St. Petersburg. They must win over enough of them to secure the capital before the regime understands what's going on and moves against them. But they learn that the Senate and Preobrazhensky Lifeguards have already sworn the oath of loyalty to Nicholas.
Oh, I thought he was about to say, I've already found out.
This painting was based on sketches made later by the Emperor himself. It shows the Preobrazhensky Lifeguards 1st Battalion arriving at the Winter Palace that morning. It's an act of loyalty for which Nicholas will always be grateful. A battalion of the Moscow Lifeguards Regiment comes over to the Decembrists' cause, thanks to the efforts of Captains Shepin Rostovsky, Mikhail Bestuzhev, and his brother Alexander Bestuzhev. But the regime is moving much faster than expected. Officers loyal to Nicholas, now aware of the unfolding coup, arrange for the Izmailovsky, Semyonovsky, and Pavlovsky Lifeguards regiments and the Lifeguards Horse Regiment to swear the oath to Nicholas. "700 men of the Moscow..."
I know there's something I'm being naive about and I don't understand, but it's crazy how like the swearing of the oath is such a set in stone thing is pretty cool, and it's something hard for me to wrap my head around.
Moscow Lifeguards Regiment leave their 700.
What am I saying? Like my word is not worth anything, I guess.
100 men of the Moscow Lifeguards Regiment leave their barracks and march through the icy streets to Senate Square. Their rallying cry is, "For Constantine and Constitution." The men of the Moscow Lifeguards Regiment take position in Senate Square, near the famous bronze statue of Peter the Great. They are joined by several Decembrist leaders, including Rylev and Kakhovsky. Captain
Phone's away. Even if you're watching on one.
Decembrist leaders, including Rylev and Kakhovsky. Captain Alexander Bestuzhev ostentatiously sharpens his saber on the base of the statue. Officers and men look resplendent in full dress uniform. But Trubetskoy, the leader of the coup who is to present the Decembrist manifesto to the Senate, is nowhere to be seen. And the members of the Senate have already gone home. Ryleev leaves to find him. Crowds of spectators begin to gather around Senate Square.
Oh, it's a dog. I thought it was like a dead person and everyone was just ignoring it.
Crowds of spectators begin to gather around Senate Square. The general mood is one of support for the Decembrists. This watercolor was painted by Karl Ivanovich Kolman, an eyewitness, and is considered one of the most realistic depictions of the day. Around noon, Count Mikhail Miloradovich, Governor General of St. Petersburg and a famous war hero, arrives in the square.
I'm sorry, who does he remind me of? This guy, doesn't he? King George IV? All right, sorry.
Petersburg and a famous war... Count Mikhail Miloradovich, Governor General of St. Petersburg and a famous war hero, arrives in the square. He rides straight up to the Moscow Lifeguards Regiment and asks, "Who among you was with me at Kulm, Lutzen, and Bautzen?" recalling the great battles against Napoleon. He tells the men they have been lied to, that Constantine has renounced the throne, and they must swear the oath to Nicholas. In Trubetskoy's absence, Lieutenant Prince Yugon Abelensky becomes de facto leader of the Decembrists in Senate Square. He tells Miloradovich to leave, but the general ignores
He looks like a kid with sideburns.
him. He tells Miloradovich to leave, but the general ignores him. Abelensky tries to prick the general's horse with a bayonet to drive him away, but accidentally stabs the general. Then Pyotr Kakhovsky steps forward and shoots Miloradovich at point-blank range. The general, mortally wounded, is carried away by his horse. The Lifeguards Grenadier Regiment and sailors of the Guard declare for the Decembrists.
What the heck just happened?
They join the Moscow Lifeguards in Senate Square. The Decembrists are gathering a powerful, disciplined force of 3,000 troops in the heart of the Russian capital. But Trubetskoy has still not appeared, and there is little leadership. They stand and wait in the freezing cold, while the Emperor begins to mobilize his own forces. Unbeknownst to the men in Senate Square, Prince Sergei Trubetskoy had given up all hope of success early that morning, as soon as he heard that the Senate had sworn its oath to Nicholas. Possibly suffering some form of breakdown, he wanders around the city, at one point passing by Senate Square itself. His brilliant military record makes such behavior difficult to understand. A Decembrist later recalled, "His absence had a decisive influence upon us and the soldiers too, for with few epaulets and no military titles, no one dared take command." Ryleev, meanwhile, exhausted and sick, spends the day in a futile search for Trubetskoy, before he is forced to retire to bed.
Sounds like he had some sort of like nervous breakdown.
The crowd is now several thousand strong, and their loyalties clearly lie with the Decembrists. Some policemen and patrols are even attacked by civilians. When Emperor Nicholas arrives, he and his entourage are pelted with sticks and stones. But Guards units loyal to the government are arriving at Senate Square in force, and take up positions surrounding the rebels. Soon they outnumber the Decembrists 3-1, though not all are willing to fire on their comrades. In fact, Isaac's Bridge is deliberately obstructed by troops of the Finnish Lifeguards Regiment, whose sympathies lie with the Decembrists. Others, such as General Orlov, are outraged by the Decembrists' actions. He orders his Guards cavalry to charge the rebels. His men are pelted with stones and timber thrown by the crowd, and the rebels stand firm. Some shots are fired, a few men are hit, and the cavalry withdraw. Several cavalry charges are made that afternoon, with no decisive outcome, and just a handful of casualties. Still, no Decembrist officer takes charge of the situation. There seems to be no plan at all. It is -10 Celsius, and their men have been standing motionless for hours. The commander of the Lifeguards Grenadiers...
So that's like 12 degrees Fahrenheit.
Plan at all. It is -10 Celsius, and their men have been standing motionless for hours. The commander of the Lifeguards Grenadier Regiment, Colonel Nikolai Sturler, arrives to order his men back to barracks. Kachowski shoots him, inflicting another fatal... Their men have been standing motionless for hours. The commander of the Lifeguards Grenadier Regiment, Colonel Nikolai Sturler, arrives to order his men back to barracks. Kachowski shoots him, inflicting another fatal wound. The metropolitan bishops of St. Petersburg and Kiev approach the troops and tell them it is their Christian duty to swear the oath to Nicholas. But they are mocked and chased away. The emperor...
Oh, God. I wonder why, because that helps you, sir. I don't know why I'm exactly rooting for... I know it ends up being futile, but this just kind of angers me. It's like, guys, it's like they probably had the same concerns and worries that monarchs do, or the Tsar does, and that they're living good, and the people are serfs, most of them, slaves, serfs, and it's your Christian duty to stand by. It's like, go to hell, dude.
But they are mocked and chased away.
Good.
The Emperor is deeply alarmed by the situation in Senate Square, though many comment on his calm demeanor. He later confides to his younger brother, "The most amazing thing about this story is that you and I were not shot."
I kind of like him now.
The short winter day is ending. Nicholas fears that if the standoff continues into the night, the crowds will turn hostile. He now has 32 guns of the Guards' artillery at his disposal. He sends General Sukhozanet to tell the rebels to lay down their arms, or they will be fired upon. It's a bad choice of emissary. Sukhozanet is despised by the troops. They tell him to get lost. As dusk falls, the gun...
Guys, I'm really confused about... I mean, your situation is not going to get better. Maybe you're just paralyzed in fear, and I know they have no real strong leader among them that can tell them what to do. But, I mean, you're already surrounded. You're watching your firing squad essentially go out in front of you. You'd think there is going to be no better chance than to attack now while they're moving the guns than to wait for when the guns are in place. But I'm not there. I'd imagine there's a lot of fear and your brain isn't working really well. And even if your brain is working well, everyone around you has to listen to you. And so I know it's not that simple.
Guns are wheeled forward.
Okay.
The first volley is blank rounds. The next is fired over the heads of the rebel troops, but hits several people in the crowd. The troops stand firm. The next volley of grape shot is fired directly into their packed ranks. Scores go down. Under this murderous fire, the troops break ranks and head out onto the frozen Neva River. Mikhail Bestuzhev tries to organize them for an attack on the Peter and Paul fortress, little more than 1,000 meters away across the ice. But as they form up, they come under more artillery fire. Cannonballs smash the ice. Many drown. The rest escape as best they can. After a standoff lasting several hours...
I saw movie scenes. I saw some movie scenes on YouTube where I think this is what it was depicting. because I wasn't really sure what it was. I knew it was in Russia, and I thought it had something to do with the Napoleonic Wars, but I think this is what it was about.
The military revolt. After a standoff lasting several hours, the military revolt has been ruthlessly crushed by Russia's new emperor. The official death toll is just 80. Eyewitnesses claim it is much higher. The Decembrist leaders...
Sorry guys, that was my mother, one of the few people I will stop a video for. Alright, I gotta go back like 10 seconds, sorry guys.
Death toll is just 80. Eyewitnesses claim it is much higher. The Decembrist leaders, who all survived the bloodshed in Senate Square, are rounded up and arrested that night and the following day. The Decembrist uprising in St. Petersburg is over. The revolt in the south has yet to begin.
It's crazy how big like the Russian Empire is here. Russia today is obviously huge, but you could have like 3 pretty powerful and giant nations, like one based in St. Petersburg, one based in Warsaw or Riga maybe, and then one based in Kiev, and they would all be pretty powerful.
Has yet to begin.
Half measures achieve nothing. We want to clear out the whole house. Pavel Pestel, letter to Nikita Muravyov. Ukraine.
13th December 1825. Tulchin, Ukraine. The day before the St. Petersburg revolt, Pavel Pestel, leading figure of the Southern Society, is denounced by one of his officers and arrested. The Southern Society's plans for an uprising are thrown into chaos. Sergei Muravyov-Apostol takes over as leader. He receives news of the disastrous uprising in St. Petersburg, but decides to go ahead with the planned rising in the south. On the 29th of December, he is arrested himself, but quickly freed by fellow officers. The next day, he leads 2 companies of the 29th Chernigov Regiment into Vasilkov, where they seize money, weapons, ammunition and supplies. 3 more companies, more than 400 men, join the rebels. The next morning, a revolutionary manifesto, written by Muravyov-Apostol and Lieutenant Mikhail Bestuzhev-Ryumin, is read out to the troops. In the question and answer form of a religious catechism, the document calls for an uprising to end autocracy, serfdom, and conscription. Question: what does our holy law order the Russian people and army to do? Answer: to repent of our lengthy servitude and stand against tyranny and wickedness, vowing that in heaven and on earth there shall be only one emperor, Jesus Christ. By the 1st of January,
I thought for a second like Epic History TV was asking us a question.
Muravyov-Apostol leads a force of 17 officers and 1,100 men. He attempts to march on Zhytomyr to link up with units of the 8th Infantry Division, whose officers are sympathetic to the Decembrist cause. But his route is blocked by government forces. Then, on the 3rd of January, at Ustimovka, his force is intercepted by troops under General Geismar.
I just want to say I really like that flag. I'm pausing too much.
Muravyov-Apostol hopes the opposing troops will join him. Instead, they open fire with grape shot. Then the hussars charge. A few men are killed, but most quickly surrender. 895 men and 6 officers are taken prisoner, including Muravyov-Apostol, who is badly wounded. His brother, Hippolyte, and another Decembrist officer, Anastasy Kuzmin, take their own lives to avoid capture. The Decembrist uprising in the south is over, crushed in just 5 days.
Isn't it crazy how the type of animals we are, that we, being very social, the amount of stress that the human brain can put on itself, like when facing like the judgment, obviously, like, you know, okay, if I'm caught, I will be executed and likely tortured and killed in a very bad way, and so therefore kill myself to avoid that. That can be seen as a logical thing. But in terms of just like the guy having that seemingly mental breakdown in St. Petersburg, it's so fascinating how our brains respond to social criticism. Is that the right word? I don't know. It's fascinating. My whole story is, in a few words, I loved my fatherland passionately. I desired its happiness with zeal. Colonel Pavel Pesto. Aftermath.
In St. Petersburg, the Decembrist leaders are interrogated by Emperor Nicholas in person before they are sent to the Peter and Paul fortress. The Emperor gives instructions on how each prisoner is to be treated, whether they are to be kept in shackles and treated severely or more gently. He despises them all. Trubetskoy he describes as a repellent example of an ungrateful scoundrel. Nicholas sets up a commission to investigate the plot and its origins. 579 suspects are arrested and subjected to repeated interrogations, long periods of solitary confinement, hunger and cold, or feigned sympathy. Many confess freely, revealing details of secret societies and names of co-conspirators. A few resist defiantly. Colonel Bulatov, who was to have led the attack on the Peter and Paul fortress, is so racked by guilt that he kills himself in his cell. There are no trials as such. 5 months later, the commission returns its verdicts to the emperor. 290 are acquitted, 289 are guilty, with 121 judged to be the greatest offenders. A Supreme Criminal Court is formed to carry out sentencing, according to 11 categories of guilt. Devised by Mikhail Speransky, the man the Decembrists had hoped would lead their new government. Those found guilty of minor crimes are demoted and sent to fight in Russia's long-running war in the Caucasus, along with the regiments that joined the Decembrists.
Sometimes I like to think how I might react if I were put... Like, sometimes I think we all kind of think, like, if you were in a position... Like, I'd like to think I would be loyal and everything, but at the same time, I don't know if I would.
31 of the Decembrists found guilty of the most serious crimes, conspiracy, rebellion, desiring the emperor's death, are to be executed by beheading. But Nicholas shows mercy and commutes their sentence to hard labor for life in Siberia.
Is this the creation of the Gulag?
Before they depart, officers are stripped of their rank and noble privileges and ceremonially disgraced. Their greatcoats are burned, their swords snapped in half. This is the punishment handed out to Nikita Muravyov, who drafted the Northern Society's constitution for a new liberal Russia, and to Prince Sergei Trubetskoy, the Decembrists' vanishing leader, whose life is only spared because of his family name. 5 Decembrists will not be spared. Pyotr Kakhovsky, Sergei Muravyov-Apostol, Mikhail Bestuzhev-Ryumin, Pavel Pestel, and Kondraty Ryleyev. A public death for the chief instigators and conspirators will be their lawful revenge for disturbing the public peace, Nicholas writes to members of the commission. All 5 are sentenced to death by quartering, a brutal punishment involving public dismemberment. God and the sovereign have decided my fate. I must die, and die a shameful death, Ryleev writes in a final letter to his wife. Pray to God for my soul.
I was going to ask something and I forget. The tactics of revolution may be summed up in 2 words: to dare. If we come to grief our failure, will serve as a if we come to grief, our failure will serve as a lesson to those who can't come after us? Am I reading that right? If we come to grief our failure, I think it, okay.
13th July, 1826. Nicholas commutes the sentence to hanging. But the execution of the 5 Decembrists by the ramparts of the Peter and Paul fortress is badly botched. As the men are hanged, ropes break, and 3 men fall to the ground. What a miserable country. They can't even hang us properly.
Oh, God, jeez,
remarks one survivor. Spectators appeal for mercy. According to tradition, a man who
survives execution is supposedly... Who's the idiot? Yeah, I think that's a thing. Like, if you survive an execution, a thing in a lot of societies, like, you're seen as like, ooh, God saved you.
Survives a hanging should be spared. Instead, more rope is found. And the second time, there is no mistake.
You were hanged twice. Not many people can say that.
More than 80 Decembrists were eventually sent to Siberia. A few were accompanied by their wives, who...
Hold on, I wanted to say something, and I don't want to forget it. Oh yeah, the Russian monarch-citizen relationship seems especially one-sided compared to other European monarchies, in that it seems like everyone hates them, and they don't really have much people, but the very, very it seems like more so than in other monarchies, there are fewer at the top than in other monarchies. Does that make sense?
Voluntarily renounced their own noble privileges to be with their husbands. Conditions in Siberia were not as extreme as might be imagined.
Lake Baikal.
Their hard labor was mostly farm work. Wealthy prisoners were sent money from home, which they used to buy supplies. For active young men, boredom was the greatest enemy. They took up hobbies, played chess, painted. These watercolors were painted by Nikolai Bestuzhev, who on the 14th had led the Imperial Guard sailors to Senate Square. Some formed their own academy, sharing their knowledge and going on to teach local children and set up schools. They remained hopeful of a pardon, but it proved a 30-year wait. Only in 1856, after the death of Emperor Nicholas, was an amnesty announced for surviving Decembrists. Among them, Prince Sergei Trubetskoy, who returned...
Can I say something? I don't think this guy seems like an awful person. Nicholas, this guy right here, he doesn't seem like an especially evil person. He just seems like he... Like, given the situation he was put in, let me know if I'm wrong, alright? You guys always get mad when I make judgments about Justinian not knowing enough. But he seems like, given the circumstance he was in and all of the stuff he could have done, he seemed like an okay guy. Can I say that? You know, giving the hanging. I know that's... I think that's... Or... it seems like he wasn't a very cruel person. I just want to say that. So I'm not. It's not that I
Among
don't.
them, Prince Sergei Trubetskoy, who returned to Russia and is seen here, photographed in 1857. The Decembrist uprising seemed to have been a total failure.
I really want to like yell at this guy, be like, "Oh, failure! Oh, you whatever." But having had panic attacks myself, there's a part of me that sort of sympathizes with him. But that's just me being selfish, I suppose.
The Decembrist uprising seemed to have been a total failure. A wildly optimistic operation, poorly planned, chaotically executed, doomed from the beginning. The loss of life, thoughtless and unnecessary. But the Decembrists...
It did seem like you had a group project to do and you waited till the last minute and nobody really knew what to do and you gave your presentation and it wasn't very good. That it just seems like people weren't set enough and things went wrong, obviously, rather than being able to assassinate the guy. Yeah.
Had mounted the first organized political revolt in Russian history. As such, their impact would prove far-reaching. The recent conspiracy, wrote the British resident minister in St. Petersburg, failed from want of management and want of a head to direct it, and was too premature to answer any good purpose. But I think the seeds are sown, which one day must produce important consequences.
I think that was very well
Emperor
said.
Nicholas was never interested in reform. The issues of serfdom and a constitution would be around for decades to come.
Maybe I did speak too soon about him. Let me just say, in his... maybe.
For those who took up the cause of reform, including Russia's liberal intelligentsia and future revolutionaries, the Decembrists were an inspiring example of action in the face of tyranny. The father of Russian socialism, Alexander Gertsen, was their great champion. He named his political journal Polar Star, after Ryleev's own. On the cover of its first edition...
Guys, I'm sorry. I know that can get annoying and old. I have a reaction when I hear socialism. Time doesn't just...
The father of Russian socialism, Alexander Gertsen, was their great champion. He named his political journal Polar Star, after Ryleev's own. On the cover of its first edition, the 5 Decembrist martyrs. In time, the Decembrists' aims, the abolition of serfdom, a constitution, even the overthrow of the Tsar, were achieved. But their brand of 19th century liberalism was soon overtaken by events in Russia. The communists never completely approved of the aristocratic Decembrists, though in 1925 they did allow Senate Square to be renamed Decembrist Square to mark the 100th anniversary of the Rising. But the Decembrists' place in Russian history remains highly contested to this day. A 2019 Russian blockbuster film was accused of trivializing the Decembrists and their aims. Others called for the film to be shown in schools. While in 2008, the St. Petersburg Square where the Decembrists made their famous stand was renamed again, back to Senate Square. The Decembrists continue to serve as a warning to some, an inspiration to others. All that is certain is the Decembrists have not been consigned to history just yet.
This channel is so damn good. It is so good. I have chills right now. Whenever I get chills in a history video, I still have it right now, even talking. This channel is phenomenal.
The Decembrists have not been consigned to history just yet.
What does this say though?
Square where the Decembrists made their famous stand was renamed again, back to Senate Square. While in 2008...
So why? So what are they trying to say by doing that? That they're It's interesting. In 2008, why rename it? Interesting.
Decent to others. All that is certain is the Decembrists have not been consigned to history just yet. Thank you to all the Epic History TV Patreon supporters who make this channel possible. If you'd like to get ad-free early access to new videos, exclusive production updates, and vote on future topics, please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/epichistorytv.
So good. So good. Fascinating, phenomenal. It was a roller coaster ride and a fun one, thanks to Epic History TV. It's not easy to do that always. I've seen a lot of history videos, and Kings and Generals, awesome. History March, Baz Battles, great. But something about this, whenever I watch an Epic History TV video, it blows me away every time. It's so well done. A++, S+. Really cool. Hope I didn't pause too much, guys. Yeah, and if you can answer my questions or just let me know what you want to do or comments or whatever down in the comments section. Love to see it. Hope you're all doing well. If not, chin up. You'll be good soon. Emotions are fickle, my friend. See you next time, guys. Bye.